Hey folks, Jeff Rowe over at JeffRo'sJourney. So, welcome back. Today we are starting a new project. We are going to be starting a load development for my 12.5-inch upper. I want to be transparent here. None of the products or parts that are being used in this upper or anywhere else in the loading has been provided by anybody. It's all been paid by me. Also, the setup that you're looking at, I just have to give a quick shout out to Johnny's Reloading Bench on YouTube and Patreon. I have learned so much from him that he's pretty much the reason that I've gotten as far into reloading as I have. If you're not familiar with JRB, take a look. He's got a wealth of information on his channel. And because of that, I want to apologize for the setup here. It looks an awful lot like his setup. From the camera angle, basically everything. I've taken a lot of what he does, like load development wise, because I think it's just really good. This in no way is to be construed as a knockoff of his videos or product. I just wanted to put that out there because I don't want anybody to be under that misunderstanding. The only reason that you're looking at this camera view is because that's what works best in my garage. You guys don't need to see a cluttered garage or poor lighting or anything like that. So I'm going to apologize up front. This is not meant to be a knockoff of his videos. Just wanted to throw that out there. Okay, with that disclaimers out of the way, what we've got here is a 12.5-inch upper. The barrel is a KAK, K-A-K, not K-A-C, 12.5-inch mid-length 5.56 barrel. It's got the mid-length gas system. Does not come dimpled for the gas block. The gas block is just a Faxon Firearms low-profile skeletonized gas block. This is a KAK forward blast directing muzzle device. I figured it would be worthy to have that on there, simply because these shorter uppers typically produce a lot of fireball and gas coming out the front, and if I'm at the range, I don't want to be bothering other shooters. Also, I don't really want to deal with the concussive nature. I want to direct it forward, obviously. The bolt and bolt carrier, just generic. I think it's Palmetto. I could be wrong on that, but it's just a standard bolt carrier group. There's nothing special about it. Same with the charging handle, that's standard. The upper is a BCM blem that I ordered. The optic is a Weaver 2x10. I believe it's their classic series. And the mount is an Aero Precision low profile mount. It's painted green because I'm taking it off of my SPR that I have painted for my area. Got to do what you got to do, right? So that's that. Oh, the handguard is a BCM key mod upper. I got it on a blowout sale, so I figured why not, right? This isn't going into combat anytime soon, hopefully, so it doesn't really matter if it's M-lock or key mod or whatever. It doesn't really matter. So other than that, I'm going to switch things around, and then we'll start talking about components and why we're undertaking this process. Okay, so these are the components we're going to be testing. We have on the projectile side, start with this guy, the Speer Gold Dot 62 grain 224 diameter bullet. I want to work up some loads for this because I'm a fan of Speer. I'm a fan of the Gold Dot line. Really, all of the Speer products are pretty good. And from my research online, this product, or bullet rather, I can't confirm it, but what I've heard is it'll expand down to about 1,800 feet per second. So if that's the case, if we can get, let's say, 2,600 feet per second out of that 12.5-inch barrel, that should mean that this will expand out to about 300 yards, which is pretty impressive. I mean, I don't really follow a whole lot of what's going on in the gun industry or the military forums or anything like that, but who knows? Maybe I'm just surprised by a well-known fact that other people have just taken as base knowledge. But I'm not going to work up a load using these guys because they're a little bit expensive. And I'm filming this on 2/11 of 2022, so we're still dealing with the supply crunch, and just components are far and few between when you can find them. So with that being said, what we're going to do is we're going to work up our loads using Hornady 62 grain full metal jacket boat tail with candelore. Same bullet weight. The gold dots don't have a candelore. These guys do. I don't think it'll make that much of a difference, but these are a lot cheaper. Bought a bag of 1,000, so we've got plenty of projectiles to shoot downrange and waste in the process of trying to find a good load. I am not necessarily looking at group size with these, because as soon as we switch over to the gold dots, who knows what our group size is going to be. So what I'm primarily interested in is velocity. Like I said, if we can try to get that 2,600 feet per second, then I think we'll be okay. As a test or base velocity, what I did was I fired 5 rounds of M855 green tip ammo, and what I saw was I don't really know how to describe this, but either I got my lots of the M855 mixed up because it's just put away just in case, right? But who knows, maybe I got those lots mixed up, but the extreme spreads were terrible. I'm talking like 150, 200, maybe even 200 plus feet per second difference. So the extreme spreads were crazy. The standard deviations were abysmal. But I was able to chronograph the results, and I'm going to put the information on the screen. You'll see a picture of it, but I actually fired it from the 12.5-inch barrel, a 16-inch barrel, an 18-inch, and a 20-inch, just to see what I'd be looking at in terms of velocity performance out of different barrel lengths, because I've always been interested in that. And if I've got the ammo, I'm going to go to the range. Why not take 4 different guns and try it out, right? So the picture that you'll be seeing here, you can see all the way down on the left-hand side is the 12.5-inch barrel, and you see that one high flyer up at the top. You can see that was a trend with the 18 and 20-inch barrel as well. I don't know why, and I think that's maybe because of the lot mix-up. Not mix-up, but just variations from lot to lot. But with the 12.5-inch barrel, we're looking at, with the inclusion of that high flyer, roughly 2550 feet per second, or 2554, I think is what it was, for the velocity. Interestingly enough, looking at that chart, the 16-inch had the best standard deviations and extreme spread of the bunch. I don't know if that's because the 62 grain was developed in conjunction with the 14.5-inch M4. I don't know, but I found that interesting. Anyway, that's the graph we're looking at. So 2,600 doesn't really seem like it would be that out of the ordinary to get. So talking about the powders here, we've got 3 different powder families. We've got Accurate, IMR, and Shooter's World products. On the Accurate side, we're using 2230, which is a faster spherical burning propellant. And then below it, we're going to be using 2520, which is a medium speed, medium burn speed propellant. Very popular with the 77 Sierra Match Kings. Very versatile powders right there. I'm not sure how the burn speeds are going to react in the 12.5-inch barrel. I just don't know. My guess is we would need the faster burning propellants to make sure all of the propellant is burnt up in that short barrel. But we'll see. I'm going to throw in some slower burning or medium burning propellants in there just to try it out, right? If we've got them, we might as well test them. On the IMR side, we're using 8208 XBR for the faster burning powder and 4895, which is a little bit slower. Actually, probably slightly faster, I would guess, than the 2520. And then on the Shooter's World side, we're using AR Plus and Match Rifle. I've heard that Match Rifle and Accurate 2520 are similar. I don't know. In my testing, Match Rifle typically gets a little bit slower velocities than 2520, but I'm using Shooter's World data for the reloading, and I don't know if that data accurately reflects the potential that Match Rifle has. But since it's their data, that's what we're using. The AR Plus, I'm gonna say comparable to 2230, but I don't know. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But anyway, that's what we're using. We're gonna load up 25 rounds of each powder. So that's what, 150 rounds. And I'll put in some of the reloading videos as well. I'll walk you guys through that. And then we're gonna go out to the range, we're gonna test them, see what happens. But as of right now, what I'm thinking, I'm really hoping 8208 XBR does well. And I'm hoping that 2520 and Match Rifle do well as well. I don't know how IMR 4895 is going to react. I think it might be a little too slow. And 2230 is probably going to be fine. AR Plus, probably going to be fine as well. But we'll see. All right. So I have to apologize. It's been about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks since I got to the range and shot these loads that we loaded up. So for Accurate 2230, we loaded at 2.260-inch overall length, and we've loaded from 23.7 grains up to a max of 23.5 grains in 0.4 of a grain increment. I will put a chart in of the velocities. You'll have to excuse me. In my desire to get these things done quickly, I did not save any of the shot data, shot to shot. I only saved the average velocity, so that chart that you're seeing only shows average velocity. But it looks like a pretty nice graph, right? Our slowest was, right around 2436, and our fastest was 2669. We achieved at least met our 2600 foot per second velocity that we were looking for, and I gotta say, overall, it's not too bad. Just looking at the chart here, I mean, maybe there's some hope down here at the 24.9 grain charge. Gave us a group size of 0.948, velocity of 2623, and a standard deviation of 46. But I'm really liking this 23.7 grain charge. Very low on the velocity. 2436 was the average. Standard deviation was 41, but the group size was 0.557. All of these groups were measured just using a caliper. I didn't use any special software or anything like that, just because I don't have it. But what I noticed, and this is all at 50 yards. All of the targets that we're going to look at today were at 50 yards. Just because with the 2 to 10 scope going out to 100, it's going to get kind of hard to see. I need to upgrade my scope. That's one thing I found. So, but overall, the velocities were pretty linear in what we were able to see in terms of charge weight per velocity. So I'm liking the 23.7 just as a general plinking load. It's light enough where it's not really beating up the gun too much. But in terms of performance, meh, right? At 50 yards, I mean, this isn't even shooting MOA. The closest that we got was right here with the 23.7. So, you take that out to 100 yards, it's going to be over an inch, right? But the 24.9, I think that does show promise. And it was right near our velocity goal of 2600. Got us 2623 with a relatively decent standard deviation. One thing I have to say is that the upper is extremely overgassed. I mean, extremely overgassed. I noticed with all of the loads that I shot, the lighter loads were ejecting at about the 230 area. So if you draw a clock on your gun, the barrel is pointing at 12, the buttstock is at 6. It was at about 2:30, 2 o'clock 30. And that's not good. That's overgassed, and it was a relatively light charge. I mean, light in terms of what we tested, but medium in terms of like the load data that we saw. So the highest charge weights were actually ejecting closer to like 1 o'clock or 1:30, which was crazy. And there was noticeable recoil in the gun. So overall, not too happy about the the overgas situation. But on KAK's website, one of the reviews did say, or actually multiple reviews did say that the gun is overgassed, or the upper is overgassed. So it was an issue that I was expecting. I just didn't know how much. So I have a couple of things on order. They should be here in the next day or two. But I have a Springco blue and red spring. The blue, I think, is a 15% increase over the standard carbine spring, and the red is a 25% increase in stiffness. And I also have a heavy buffer and an H2 buffer coming. One is from KAK, the other is the heavy buffer is KAK, the H2 buffer is from a company called NSB. I don't really know much about them, but figured it's just a buffer. Why not, right? So the standard carbine spring and carbine buffer is what's currently in the upper or in the lower receiver, in the buffer tube. The carbine buffer I think is at like 2.9 ounces, and the heavy goes up to a 3.8 ounce buffer weight, and then the H2 I believe is at 4.9. So a lot of what I've read online seems to indicate that for shorter uppers, the carbine spring, the blue one from Springco, and the H2 buffer seems to really help out with the overgas situation. So we'll see. I'll make a separate video just kind of testing out the different configurations with the springs and the buffer tubes, and we'll see what happens, right? So speaking of accurate 2520, let's take a look at that velocity chart. So I kind of fixed my screw up here. After the first two strings, I recorded those average velocities, but then I decided, you know what? Let's actually get all the data. If we're going to be out here, we're going to be shooting, let's just get all the data. And you can see, right there at 26.7 grains, all 5 shots were just boom, right there. And then the standard deviation started to increase with the higher charges. I gotta say, out of that 12.5-inch barrel, I am really impressed. So accurate 2520, we shot that at 2.240 inches overall length, and we went from 25.9 grains all the way up to 27.5 grains. So I was interested in seeing that all of our charge weights at the, we basically started at 2567 velocity, and the standard deviation was 15. I mean, that's pretty darn good. The 26.3 grains got us right at 2619 feet per second with another really decent standard deviation of 17. And that shot our tightest group at 0.970 inches. Again, this is at 50 yards. And that was followed right up at 26.7 grains with a very gaudy 3-foot standard deviation and a velocity of 2680. 27.1 grains got us 2722 with another really low standard deviation. I like that. I'm really liking that actually. And we actually topped out at 2769 feet per second with a 12-foot standard deviation. foot per second standard deviation. I have to say 2520 shows promise. I'm really liking the velocities that we got with that. And if we can get the overgas situation worked out, I think this is going to be a contender. I really do. This one, yeah, it was ejecting at like 1 o'clock with the higher loads here. So I like it. This was not that far off from our 0.97 inch group, but it's interesting that anywhere from 2567 to 2680 got us basically a 1.045 inch group, a 0.970, and a 1.027. So there's a lot of promise right up in here. So we'll see. We might even be able to surpass 2600 feet per second, which blows my mind. It really does. So I just couldn't be happier with the performance out of 2520. All right, next up, we've got IMR 8208 XBR. This one we shot at an overall length of 2.260, and the minimum charge was 23.8 up to a maximum of 25.4 in 0.4 of a grain increment as well. On the screen you'll be seeing the chart for velocities. Not a terrible looking chart. Best standard deviations were right at the 24.6 and 24.2 charge weights. So I think, and this is, it's close, but I think 8208 XBR had the tightest groups. Just looking at the eyeball test, this guy right here at 24.2 at a 0.880 with a standard deviation of 20 and an average velocity of 2551. I mean, that's pretty good, right? But, you know, you can see 23.8, velocity of 2475, standard deviation of 30, 0.952 inch. 24.6 got us 2613, standard deviation of 19, and a group size of 0.996. And then the group size just got worse after that. I didn't even bother measuring that one because it's just bad. Again, that was at 2750 feet per second. So, yeah, shocked at how fast we can go with some of these powders. Just goes to show you that maybe M855 is not as hot as we thought. Who knows? Or maybe it's just optimized for a longer barrel. That could be it also. You know, who knows? But I'm really liking this 24.2 to 24.6 range. So there's definitely some more exploration we're going to be doing there. All right, let's put that aside. Okay, IMR 4895. This one was loaded at 2.24 inches overall length, from 24.3 grains up to 25.9 grains in 0.4 of a grain increment. So this one, it didn't quite go as fast as 2520 or 8208 XBR did. It had some decent standard deviations between this 24.7 to 25.5 range, but the best groups were down here at 24.3 and 24.7. So, you know, 2479 was our average velocity and 2544. This one here, 25.1. This could have been a point of impact shift, who knows? Or just my terrible shooting, one or the other. But I really want to explore this range a little bit more, just to see. I think 4895 isn't going to be as capable of reaching our velocity target as we want. But again, I mean, we still got there, right? 2628, you know, and we reached 2706 feet per second. So, you know, we'll see. But looking at the velocity chart, which you're looking at now, I mean, that's a good looking graph. I mean, the standard deviations tightened up the higher in charge weight we went, which makes sense. You know, we're filling up more of that case, more uniformed ignition. So And I should note that all of these were loaded with CCI 400 primers. So just regular CCI 400 small rifle primers, not CCI 41s for the 5.56, or anything like that. Just regular run-of-the-mill small rifle primers. So, all right, moving on to Shooter's World Match Rifle. I had high hopes for this powder, and let's see how it did. We shot it at 2.245 inches overall length, and we went from 24.5 up to 26.1. That was the 223 Remington data from Shooter's World Match Rifle. I'm going to throw it right out there. I think their load data for 223 is wrong. Or if not wrong, very, very conservative. Our slowest velocity was 2,200 feet per second. And our fastest was 2479. So our highest charge of 26.1 grains did not even match the slowest velocity of some of our other powders. I don't know what Shooter's World is doing. I don't know. It's just baffling to me. But looking at the chart, which you're going to look at right now, pretty ugly. Standard deviations were all over the place. But what is interesting and what kind of confirms my idea that Shooter's World Match Rifle isn't loaded as hot as it should be is that last charge, 26.1, it had a standard deviation of 13. And those standard deviations, the lowest charge was okay and the highest charge was okay. I think if we loaded this hotter, those standard deviations would tighten up. I really do. I think that there was just too much case capacity and it led to erratic ignition. So, this, and the targets show it, right? I mean, this shot the worst groups out of all the targets we've looked at so far. I mean, our best target was a 1.109 inch group at 2226 feet per second. Our worst, oddly enough, which was the highest velocity, was down here at 26.1. That had this best standard deviation. So I don't know. Don't know what to make of it. But anyway, yeah, I had high hopes for this powder. I was hoping it would work, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Shooter's World data. Let's just say if I had to pick right now, I would not be picking Shooter's World Match Rifle as my go-to powder. All right, and the last group of targets and chart that we're going to look at is Shooter's World AR Plus. We shot that at 2.260 inches overall length from 24.2 up to 25.8 grains in 0.4 of a grain increment. Looking at the velocity chart, yeah, that's abysmal. Abysmal. That, I don't know. Yeah, I think I could throw a bullet with more consistency than this powder can shoot it. So our lowest charge of 24.2 grains got us a velocity of 2517 with a standard deviation of 69. But looking at the group, 0.972. That was the best group that this powder shot. 24.6 grains got us up to 2617 with a 1.079 inch group. And who knows, the difference is that's me. I'm almost guaranteed that that's me. 25 grains got us 2639. Our highest velocity was 25.4 grains with our best standard deviation. And the next charge, 25.8, our max, actually saw a decrease of 16 feet per second. Explain that one. I have no idea. I have no freaking idea why that would occur. Since this was the last target we shot, perhaps what happened was that the battery in the chronograph was getting low, and that caused some erratic readings. But if we're going to throw that excuse into the mix, then how can we trust any of these readings, right? So I'm not going to say that that was the case. Okay, so after going all over that information for a few days, I mean, I had time, right? Couldn't get to the range. Didn't really do a whole lot of reloading. So I had time to look at observations, right? And so I came up with 5. right? 5 observations. Yeah, 5 observations. So first, obviously the velocities we obtained were much faster than I had anticipated, right? I mean, we were blowing past 2,600 feet per second with some of these powders. And of the 150, no, that's not right. I don't know. Out of all the loads we tested, 21 actually had a range from 2,500 to 2,700 feet per second. We can hit 2,600 no problem. And we can even blow past that and get up to like 2,750 maybe. That's shocking to me. I mean, in a good way, right? Like, that's what we want. We want to be pleasantly surprised. So observation number 2 is that groups under 1 inch had velocities ranging from 2,475 feet per second to 2,625 feet per second. So maybe that number of 2,600 velocity that we pulled out of our butts is onto something. Who knows? We could load down to 2,475 and just have a nice plinking load. And then we could also load up to 2,625 for some serious butt kicking or varmint hunting loads, right? I mean, I found it interesting that in that 150 foot per second spread, we found our best accuracies. Observation number 3, the best groups were shot almost exclusively with an overall length of 2.260. And I tested the jump in this upper, so our distance from 2.260 to the lands in our barrel. The jump is 66 thousandths of an inch. And that got me thinking. So if 66 thousandths of an inch is the jump at 2.260, which is our magazine length for the AR-15, I'm not necessarily surprised that we saw not as good of an accuracy percentage with rounds that were loaded at 2.240 or even 2.245, like match rifle, which was loaded at 2.245, IMR 4895 at 2.240, and accurate 2520, which was loaded at 2.240 as well. That's interesting to me. Number 4, and this is dealing with match rifle, I don't think it's loaded hot enough. I really don't. I was looking at Shooter's World's reloading PDF online. So their 5.56 data doesn't include 62 grain bullets. Their 223 Remington load data does. Now their 5.56 data has 55 grain, 69 grain, and 77 grain bullet weights. And those bullet weights are also included in their 223 Remington data. Their 223 Remington is not loaded as hot as the 5.56 data is, obviously, for max pressures, right? But if I look at the 69 grain bullet 5.56 data, they load up to, I believe, 27.2 grains of powder. So why then could we not shoot 27.2 with a 62 grain bullet? That seems like it's possible, right? I think it is. I think it is. And then my 5th observation is the upper's obviously extremely overgassed. The gas port, I was looking around, and I think the gas port is a 0.087 inch. From some of the looking around I've done, like Sons of Liberty Gunworks, I think their shorter uppers are at like a 0.067. So we're 20 thousandths of an inch larger in gas port size, which is no wonder why we're getting an overgassed upper. We're going to be messing around with that. That's going to be a separate video, not included in this video that I'm putting out right now. But we're gonna see if we can't fix that overgassed situation. So, with all of those observations being identified and excluding the overgassed upper, there are some hypotheses that I want to test. Hypothesis number 1. Can we improve accuracy with IMR 4895, accurate 2520, and Shooter's World Match Rifle by increasing the cartridge overall length to 2.260? I mean, it stands to reason that if our best groups were shot at a length of 2.260, maybe this bullet is jump intolerant and needs to be loaded closer to the lands. Obviously, if we load longer than what we did, our pressures are going to be less because there's more case capacity, so we might see a drop off in velocity. We can compensate for that, right? We can just choose a few load ranges that we think are going to get us close to that 2600 and just see what happens. Who knows? We might even be able to get 2700 feet per second and shoot sub-inch groups at 50 yards. that would be ideal. With Accurate 2520 and IMR 4895, we're going to do 5 shot groups, all loaded to 2.260 overall length, and we're going to go from 25.7 up to 26.5 grains in 0.2 of a grain increment. IMR 4895, we're going to do 5 shot groups, 5 loads, 24.7 up to 25.5 in 0.2 of a grain increment, just to narrow in. Maybe there's a accuracy node that we're missing by going forward. Tenths of a grain changes, right? Who knows? Observation number 1A, we'll call it, or 1B. We're gonna load Shooter's World Match Rifle hotter. We're gonna go a little bit on the wild side here. Full disclosure: do not take my data and insert it for your gun. Okay, I'm doing something that's not published data here from Shooter's World, so there's a good chance that maybe damage could result. Maybe we're popping primers. Who knows, right? We're gonna load Shooter's World Match Rifle at 2.260 inch overall length, and we're gonna go from 25.9 grains up to 27.5 grains, and that's gonna be in 0.4 of a grain increment. Now, I'm only doing 1 round per charge weight because if we start seeing pressure signs at 26.7, I don't want to have to waste 10 rounds or pull 10 rounds because I don't have a bullet puller, right? Seems like a dumb reason, but if I have to pull 1 round or 2 rounds, I'd rather do that eventually when I get around to buying a bullet puller than having to pull 20 or 10 or 5 or whatever. We're gonna try for higher velocity, and we're only doing 1 round each. Now, hypothesis number 2, we're gonna narrow it down to find our best loads with Accurate 2230 and 8208 XBR. We're not changing the overall length, so we're not going to have to guess what the velocity is going to do. We have a chart for that, and we're going to go from 24.4 grains up to 25 grains in 0.2 of a grain increment. We're only going to shoot 4 groups, and 8208 XBR, again, we're going to shoot 4 5-shot groups from 24.3 up to 25.9, and we're going to see what happens. I find it interesting that Accurate 2230 and 8208 XBR are only off by 0.1 of a grain with their charge weights to try and find the velocities that we're looking for. I think they're similar in burn speed, and that could be why. And 2520 and IMR 4895 are 1 grain off. So I found that interesting as well. But that's what we're going to do.